Hello guys, welcome back to Audible Odyssey. So let's step into a world of immersive storytelling where gripping tales of mystery, horror and adventure come to life. Each narration is crafted to pull you into the heart of the story, creating an unforgettable audio experience. From spine-tingling horrors to timeless classics, Audible Odyssey Adventures is your gateway to thrilling journeys beyond imagination. Subscribe now, and let the stories take you to places you've never dreamed of. Audible Odyssey Presents. About a year ago, my wife and I decided to spend Thanksgiving at a cabin up north. We found it online through a website we've used in the past and booked it for a week. The owner warned us it could be hard to get back to work in the winter because of the snow. The cabin was located outside of Pinto, Arizona. Outside, it was 35 miles from the nearest town and 18 mil from the nearest paved road. Jess and I weren't worried though, since our Jeep had snow tires and we were bringing change just in case. We planned on starting a family the following year and wanted one last romantic holiday with just the two of us. We arrived on a Friday afternoon. We'd had an excellent time on the drive as there was actually very little snow on the ground. We decided to take a tour of the cabin before we unloaded the car. The cabin, named Paradise Pine, was 3 stories tall and built into the side of a mountain. At the top floor was simply the master bedroom, which was connected to a second-story patio balcony via a sliding glass door. The front door was located on the ground floor along with the kitchen and living room, and the basement housed a washer, a dryer and a wood furnace that heated the cabin through a large pipe that extended up through all 3 floors. Even though the views through the bay windows were beautiful, the first thing we noticed when we walked in was that the cabin hadn't been cleaned. Oftentimes with very rural properties, the owner will offer to waive the $150 cleaning fee if you're willing to clean the place yourself before you depart. Most guests opt to do this, but in the rare occurrence is that the owner sends a cleaning crew. The previous tenants in this cabin had clearly decided not to clean and not inform the owner that they were leaving it dirty, since it was a holiday and a snowstorm was forecasted for early next week. We decided to clean the cabin ourselves and ask the owner to reduce our bill. When we left the following Friday, we brought everything in from the Jeep and got to work with dishes and laundry. Afterwards, we made an easy dinner, opened a bottle of wine and played a few games of billiards on the pool table in the living room. The temperature started to plummet at around 6 o'clock in the evening, and I asked my wife Jess to go down and light the furnace in the basement. I went up to the bedroom to wash my face and change into warmer clothes. The bathroom connected to our bedroom was oddly odorless and had a broken mirror and a torn-down shower curtain. Wow, there are some cowboys here. They hadn't even bothered to pick the glass up off the floor before they left. I did so carefully, regretting the stupidity of the drunken idiots who must have stayed here the week before. I took a few photos with my phone and planned to send them to the owner when we got back to town on Monday. I certainly didn't want to be charged for damage inflicted by the previous tenants. I met Jess on the ground level and told her about the bathroom. Well, that's not the only thing that's broken. The light's out in the basement and I couldn't find a flashlight. I did manage to find the furnace though. I squirted some of that cheap vodka your sister sent in there. Threw in a match and hoped for the best. It seemed to be working. I stammered through my now chattering teeth. I could feel the heats coming through. I held my hand up to the metal pipe that wound its way around the house to keep the basement door closed. It's freezing down there. One of our favorite things to do when staying at a cabin is to read through all of the journal entries of the previous guests. Usually it was just things like fishing with the kids, catching a bass or having a barbecue, playing cards with the family, but occasionally you find something more interesting, like getting drunk, setting a tree on fire. We found the Paradise Pine diary and snuggled up on the couch. Jess read aloud the first 4 or 5 entries before I decided to take over. We were about halfway through the book when we called it a night and went to bed. The following evening, we stayed up late as we'd had a long nap that day. The plan had been to go on a hike, but it was too cold out. Luckily, the furnace in the basement was, to our amazement, still burning. We spent the whole day lazing around the living room. After eating, Jess practiced pool while I read aloud from the journal starting where we'd left off. I read for an hour before finally arriving at the journal entry of the guests who'd stayed there before us. I was very interested in this one. These people had to have a good story. The writer had chosen to format his entries into dates with timestamps. There were over 6 pages, and I could already tell the handwriting sort of disintegrated as the days wore on. Wow, they must have been drunk all weekend. Look how messy this handwriting gets. I held the book up to Jess. Can you read it? She asked, spinning the 8-ball into a corner pocket. Of course, I'm great at reading other people's terrible handwriting by now. I sent her an impish grin and took another sip of wine before beginning to read. Sunday, November 4th at 3:30 p.m. Wow, what a beautiful cabin. My wife and I booked this place for 2 weeks on a whim, and we can't believe how lucky we got. Barely made it back here with the truck. There's snow everywhere, at least a foot deep, and it's below 40 degrees outside. Thankfully, the furnace in the basement is huge as promised by Marissa, so all 3 floors are warm and cozy. Monday, November 5th, 11:30 a.m. We're snowed and we'd wanted to run home today to grab a few things we forgot, but that's definitely not happening. The road is unmanageable, so it appears we aren't going anywhere. Looks like we'll be spending most of our day inside drinking mimosas and playing poker. As you can see, we aren't too upset about it. Tuesday, November 6th, 7:25 p.m. My wife Sarah is now cooking a delicious roast chicken, and I'm finally going to start writing. This is the reason we came here after all, and I refuse to waste the opportunity to cure my writer's block. It's just so gorgeous here. I haven't written a damn thing. I also saw someone walking around the tree line today. I've got no idea how they're surviving out there. We won't even go outside. It was 34 degrees. Last I checked, Wednesday, November 7th, 9 p.m. Today Sarah and I made a snowman and snow angels. We don't get snow in Scottsdale, so we're taking full advantage of it. I haven't been able to write anything new, but I did edit the previous 2 chapters of my book. I think the beauty of this place is just too distracting. I'm kidding, sort of. I think we may have neighbors. I was having a cigarette on the balcony last night and I saw someone at the tree line again. He's extremely tall, and certainly close enough to say hello, but when I waved he walked back into the woods. We'll have to ask Marissa about this. She didn't mention any neighbors nearby. Thursday, November 8th, 1 p.m. This morning I woke up to find animal tracks all around the outside of the cabin. I don't know what sort of animal made them. The prints were in the shape of a rectangle, almost like they were made by the end of a 2x4. By the time Sarah got up at 11 o'clock the snow had mostly melted, but you could still kind of see them. I think last night's snow is the last we'll get while we're here. The sky is looking pretty clear. Sarah thinks I'm succumbing to cabin fever, so today we're going for a hike since it's so beautiful out. Friday, November 9th, 7 a.m. Last night someone tried to get into the house. I woke up at about 1 o'clock in the morning to the sound of banging on the front door, not knocking, banging. I went downstairs and grabbed a pole stick. I asked who it was and the banging stopped. I waited a few minutes and then opened the door, but there was nothing there. I started back up the stairs to wake Sarah, as she's a heavy sleeper. The banging sounded again, more urgently, this time, and from the other side of the room, on the wall next to the bookshelf. It stopped after a long minute and I sat down on the steps and waited all night for them to try something. Nothing happened after that. Friday, November 9th, 2 p.m. I told Sarah what happened and she wanted to leave. I'm not really convinced, but Sarah gets scared easily. I'll admit that I'm a bit on edge. I tried to start the car this morning but nothing happened. I'm not a car guy and I've got no idea what to do. We could hike out. There's no signal out here and we could not find a house phone. We talked about it and decided we're just going to wait it out here. I know people have this cabin rented out on the 16th, so we'll just have to wait the week for them. I did found a wooden ace which I'm keep in the bedroom just in case they come back to harass us. I think it's probably a homeless person living out in the woods. There were tracks around the house again this morning and I'm no longer convinced they're from an animal. We'll see if they come. Back Saturday 5 a.m. Last night the knocking was back, but it was something knocking on the sliding door to our bedroom from the second-story patio. I don't know how it climbed up there. It knocked on the window gently, almost coaxingly. A thin curtain covers the sliding glass door so I couldn't see what it was. The knocking finally stopped and a full minute later it started again, becoming the loud insistent banging of the night before I reached over to Sarah and grabbed the ace, bounding out of bed as she screamed. By the time I got to the sliding door, the banging had stopped. I threw back the curtain but there was no one on the patio in the moonlight. I saw it walking away from the cabin back towards the tree line. Sarah stumbled over to the window and I showed her the retreating figure. She covered her face and cried. What we saw terrified us both. It's not a human. It's tall, maybe 10 feet and skinny. It looked just like a black stick figure, impossibly thin. It has no hands or feet, just stumps and no face. It's just a black oval with no features. The contrast was horrifying, this tall black stick man walking through the snow. It reached the tree line and disappeared. I spent the next hour trying to calm Sarah down. She said we needed to leave. I think she's right. When we were finally calm enough to lie in bed again, the silence was deaf. I felt myself slowly start to drift off. It was out of this silence that the knocking came again. This time on our bedroom door. I jumped out of bed and grabbed the ace again. Sarah got back into a corner and screamed. By the time I threw open the door, the knocking had stopped and there was nothing there, but the front door was wide open. It could get in inside the cabin. I don't know what it wanted. Saturday 5 p.m. I'm terrified, my wife is terrified. Today I considered setting the car on fire just to see if the smoke would attract someone's attention. Sarah wouldn't let me because it's our only way out, so we packed up the car instead. Maybe when the snow melts we'll be able to fix the car. I caught Sarah staring off a lot and she hasn't said much since she saw the stick man. Seeing the thing affected me too. I've been having migraines today. I've never had a migraine before. I want to protect my wife but I don't know what to do. I caught Sarah staring at me almost in a trance earlier. I asked her what was wrong and she said it was eating us. She seemed to snap out of it pretty quick after that and asked me why I was staring at her. She doesn't remember saying it and we can't figure out what it means. This thing is screwing with our heads. On Sunday 10 a.m. last night I stayed up all night. It's lightly snow. All was quiet. Sunday 7 o'clock p.m. I found footprints this afternoon on the upstairs balcony, the same rectangular ones the stick man makes. He was outside our window again. I brushed them away before Sarah could see. It stopped snowing an hour ago and it's twilight now. I can see him in the tree. I saw him turn around and walk back into the woods. His profile is as thin as a piece of paper. The stick man came back, though I think we're going to die here. On Monday, November 12 at 9 a.m. last night I went out on the balcony at around 8 for a cigarette. I heard a noise behind me and turned to see the stick pin on the roof 5 feet above me. I ran back inside to grab the ace and screamed at Sarah to arm herself. I turned around to run back outside and heard the stick pin running above me on the roof in the same direction. When I got outside, the thing was gone. I saw it running off into the trees again, but it was different. It was taller. I think there's more than one. When I got back inside, Sarah had locked herself in the upstairs bathroom. She was hysterical and kept saying she was going to die. I tried to give her the pool stick, but she wouldn't open the door for anything. I sat on the bed and waited. At some point, Sarah must have fallen asleep because all was quiet. It was then that I first heard it walking around in the kitchen. I backed away from the bedroom door. Courage suddenly failing me. It was in the house. I waited for more sounds from the kitchen, but none came. After a few minutes, I finally heard a thump. It was on the stairs. It was climbing the stairs, thumping slowly but loudly thump. I banged the bedroom door from my side and told it to leave us alone. Sarah was screaming again, sobbing. It could hurt me, but I would never let it hurt my family. It stopped when it got to the top step. I could feel it on the other side of the door. It didn't make a noise. I tried to think of a strategy that would give me the upper hand if it attacked. I finally decided that if I threw the door open it would knock the stick pin down the stairs. On the count of 3, I turned the handle and kicked the door swung open freely and I saw the black stick man still down on the landing of the stairs facing me. It was more than 10 foot tall. I was paralyzed with horror for several long seconds when it started running up the stairs at me without warning. I stumbled back into the room as fast as I could as I realized that death at the hands of the stick man was more than death, worse than death. It ate you, it kept to you, it stopped at the top step and dipped its head through the door taking 2 steps into the room. It was just a tall black shadow, almost more of a dense absence of light than a solid black. Realizing the 8 was still in my hand, I moved between the stick man and the bathroom door. I raised the 8 to attack and at that moment the stick man screamed. It was unlike anything I'd ever heard before. I wanted to hold my hands over my ears as I felt an ebbing thunder in my brain. I heard the mirror shatter in the bathroom from the sound. I thought of Sarah with the last ounce of strength I had. I ran at the thing, ate it and brought it down into the creature's chest over and over again for what felt like forever. It was probably no time at all. It threw me aside and I heard my wife scream. That's the last thing I remember before I passed out. When I opened my eyes again, it was mid-morning. My wife was gone, the bathroom door was gone and the 8 was gone. I looked for Sarah all morning. I walked deep into the woods. I searched for miles. I'm going to go to sleep for a few minutes and then go back out into the woods to find her. I hope I meet the stick man. If Sarah's dead, I want to be dead. I think that's what I wanted all along. Monday, November 12, 6 p.m. It's getting dark and harder to search the woods in my mind. All I hear is her voice. It eats us over and over again. What was done to her? I couldn't save her after everything. I couldn't save her when I first realized I'd forgotten my medication. The snowstorm stopped us from leaving, but when I saw the stick man I thought it was a blessing in disguise. I needed to be clear-minded and alert to protect my family and I couldn't do that when I was in the hell period, but it didn't matter. In the end, I couldn't save her. The car started on the first try this morning. It's letting me leave. I'm going to drive around to the other side of the mountain and walk back towards the cabin. Maybe I'll find the stream, maybe I'll find Sarah. It would be useless to stay another day. The stick man is gone. I know it in my heart and it's below freezing and the furnace is burned out. The firewood is gone. If I find her, I'll come back and write in this book my only friend now. Jess had stopped playing pool long ago and the wine hadn't been touched since I started reading. We stared at each other as the last line echoed around the cabin. We both seemed to wake from our paralyzed state. At the same time, I threw the book across the room and Jess backed up into the bookcase, saying, "Jesus, this is fake, right?" I asked, as I stood up. I didn't need the glass of wine anymore. I needed the whole bottle. I don't know, I don't think so. The guy said he was a writer. I insisted he probably just wanted to write a scary story for other guests, although he really crossed the line into downright disturbing. I took a sip of wine and turned around to see Jess eyeing the stairs wearily. You can't be serious, Jess, it's creepy as hell. I agree, but come on, almost like she didn't hear me. Jess started up the stairs. I don't know what she wanted to see up there, but I put the wine down and followed Sue. By the time I got into the bedroom, Jess was sliding the glass door open. I followed her out onto the balcony. You could see the tree line from the patio very clearly. I searched the woods for any movement but saw nothing. I turned to say something to Jess and found her studying the roof. She threw a wild look at me and walked back inside. I followed her in. Jess paced around the room and I was starting to get annoyed. It's all just like in the story. You can see the tree line the field and the roof from the balcony, and she pointed to the attached bathroom. There are hinges but no door. There should be a door. It's a bathroom, and the mirror that I used was shattered by the stickman's scream. She was starting to scare me. Jess was usually the most logical person. I knew the stickpin did not even pay attention to what you read. There was no stickpin. Obviously no, I mean there was never his last entry about the medication and how they got snowed in and couldn't go back for it. Hello period, it's us used to treating schizophrenia. Go read it again. The entire thing is him slowly succumbing to his psychosis. Page by page. Hell, his wife knew it was happening. This is madness, Jess. I walked into the bathroom and looked around. You think someone died here 4 days ago? Jess shook her head. I don't know. I think it's a possibility the shower curtain was torn down, the mirrors broken. It certainly looks like there could have been a struggle in here, and the door, the ace, are both missing. The logic of her conclusions began to dawn on me. Oh my God, if this is the real Jess. We cleaned this place from top to bottom when we got here. If there was a murder, we've destroyed all the evidence. We didn't know that someone had died here. We still don't know Jess' body. I don't know. Maybe it's buried out in the woods. We need to leave. We need to go and get help. Let's take the book to the police and tell them what we found when we got here, just to be safe. Okay, Jesus, this guy could come back any time. Let's get out of here. We had just started down the stairs when another thought occurred to me. I stopped on the landing. Jess turned around. Yeah, he said the fire in the furnace had burned out. Did you put firewood in when you lit it? No, it was almost pitch black. I couldn't see any firewood, but we've been burning that furnace for almost a day. I could see the implications slowly dawning over Jess's face. What have we been burning? Jess ran for the basement door and I followed her when she opened the door. I can describe to you what came up from below. It was hot, strong, heavy air. I stood on the top step as Jess descended into the basement. The axe is down here. I took a deep breath and followed her down. I stopped on the bottom downstairs, refusing to go any further. It was still very dark, but for the light coming down the stairs and a soft orange glow in the back of the room. Jess knelt in front of the stove door. She looked over at me and I nodded. Jess slowly turned the handle and pulled open the furnace door. The fire inside lit her face and, after a moment, the horror she expressed told me everything I needed to know. They found Jason Hardy. Less than a month later, he died out in the woods 50 yards from the cabin. In fact, he'd been hanging there when we pulled up on the Sunday, the 18th of November. I've often wondered if he did it because he wanted to be with his wife or if he did it because he realized what he'd done. I hoped it was the latter because I hated him so much, not for his mental illness, not for his crime, sasses, but for what he did to us. Sarah Harding had burned in that furnace for a day, and for a day we'd breathed in every atom of her body, we'd kept warm by the flesh of her. Why didn't it smell? We were given a very scientific explanation, citing high burning temperatures, years of pine infusion and the pieces of wooden door burning in there with her, but it didn't stop the nightmares. The case made headline news, at least locally. We'd managed to stop our names being associated with Paradise Pine after agreement with the police. We never told our friends or families we were involved. We tried to forget. Paradise Pine still stands today. It's available for rent, although the name's been changed. The owner insisted on keeping the cabin journal, so the police tore out Jason Harding's pages and gave it back to her. It still sits on the table next to the bookshelf, and tenants still read it and write about their own experiences. Sometimes I wonder if people see those torn pages and wonder what was written on them and what happened to merit their disappearance. I guess they'll never know that the cabin they're standing in is actually the Paradise Pine. So guys, the video has ended now. If you like our stories and want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to Audible Odyssey channel and do all these things: like, comment, share, and subscribe. Enjoy horror and adventure stories like this. So just subscribe to Audible Odyssey. Bye bye.